and she used to scoop the sweets out and throw them into the crowd as far as she could, so you'd all have a nice couple of toffees to chew before the game started. But then, who followed the toffee lady? Missed the health and safety and said, can't throw sweets anymore. Cause problems, hit you in the eye or the face, sue you, cost you, no money left. So we don't have a toffee lady anymore. But we do sponsor one if they ask. But she's usually only a young girl, and she walks along the front row. She hands you sweet. You eat it at your own risk, because you don't know what's in them today. Nuts, additives, funny milk. There you go. So rows 2, 3 and 4, unfortunately you don't get one because you can't throw them. So we don't give very many sweets away these days. These row houses here became Anne Fowler's home for young girls. And in this shaded area here lived the elders of the village. And the elders of the village were staunch churchgoers. And everything that happened in the village had to go through the church before it was okayed. And they had 3 little chapels in the village and decided to sell those chapels and build a church. The Church of St. Domingo. And we were St. Domingo Football Club before we changed our name to Everton. A group of boys used to meet at the church, and the Reverend Ben Chambers would take them down St. Domingo Grove, across the road, and into the Sandon Pub. The Sandon Pub is about 200 yards away from Anfield's ground. It was used as sporting headquarters and changing rooms, and the boys would go there, get changed, go on to Stanley Park and play football. How could they play football? There were no rules. The only way they could play was just haphazard passing to anybody on the pitch, and the nearest to the sticks at the end got the goal. And it wasn't until a few years later that the FA were formed, and they made rules similar to the football played today. This is 1600s, you know, that we're talking about. And because all the boys on the pitch did not belong to St. Domingo Church, they decided at that time to change their name to Everton for the area that they lived in. And because all the boys didn't have the same colour shirts on, they put all the shirts into a big vat, dyed them black, and they wore a pink sash from the shoulder to the bottom of the shirt. They started their playing career on Stanley Park in the corner of Priory Road and Anfield Road. One of the families there, Mr. Cruitt, gave them a nice big piece of ground where they took their spades and flattened it down and put 2 picket fences round either side, and there they started playing football. But unfortunately, they weren't there very long, because the lady of the house, she didn't realise that fans made a noise while they're watching a game. And it was far too noisy for her. She said, oh, move away. So they moved around Stanley Park until they came to another piece of ground on the west side. Once owned by a brewery that made beer, they said, can we play our football on your ground? Pay the rent, keep it in a fair condition, you can play your football. And there they flourished. They had 6,000 fans. They won the Liverpool Cup. They were playing teams like Earlstown, Newton Heath, who later changed their name to Manchester United, St Peter's and Bootle. They built a stand right along the edge of the pitch and a small one down the side. The fans increased to 8,000. The owner of the Sandon Pub was also a brewer, and he was in cahoots with the owners of this ground. And he said to the directors of Everton, you pay £140 a year rent on this ground. Well, I think it's to £240 a year. Are you? Well, we ain't going to pay it, because it's far, far too expensive. I'm going to sell beer at the ground. Beer at the ground? To churchgoers? Cup of tea, yes. Beer? No. Then you'll have to go. And you won't find another piece of ground anywhere in this vicinity where you could build another stadium. But we did. We came down here to a place called Mill Green Fields, which we bought, ready to build another stadium. Because if we had stayed behind and paid £240 a year rent on that piece of ground that they now call where would Liverpool be playing if we'd have stayed? There wouldn't have been a Liverpool football club if we'd have stayed, so it's our fault. It's history and we can't change it. And that's how two teams came to be in this city. John Rowling took to the court. He wanted to be called Everton. He lost. They became Liverpool and we were Everton Football Club. But having said that, we've come down here to buy this piece of ground, ready to build a stadium. We've built a 3-sided stadium with 2 stands, 12 turnstiles, 2 gates, an advertising board, housing for the players to get changed in, 29,000 yards of sewage and piping at Fortnum's Halfpenny Yard. Goodisonpark, it's ours, we own it. One of our directors loaned us £1,000 to start the building. We sold shares for £1 each, which we could pay back at 10 pence a week. We had organ recycles, we had church bazaars, we had rummage sales, until we had enough money to pay for that ground, and we still had £200 left in the bank. So when you come to the ground on match days and you're singing, and if you know your history, you do now because I've just told it, so you know what you're singing about. Okay? See this gentleman here on the wall? His name is William Ralph Dean. Dixie Dean to the Evertonians, and Dixie Dean is the only player in the world to have scored 60 goals in one season, and it still stands 85 years on. Accruing those goals, he scored 5 against Manchester United, 3 against Liverpool, and on the last game of the season, they were playing Arsenal. He needed a hat-trick. 4 minutes to go, and his 3rd goal went in. And 66,000 people all came onto the pitch to look, hug and kiss him. He was gone, back to the changing rooms. He didn't want to be hugged and kissed by all these people. He was paid to score goals. That's what he done, and he was happy. But he did come back about an hour later, and they were all shaking his hands and thanking him for scoring all these goals. But Dixie Dean was born and bred in Birkenhead, on the opposite side of the River Mersey to Liverpool. And he lived in 331 Laird Street in a two-down house with his mother, his father, 5 sisters and himself. Wasn't a lot of room in that house for a boy, so overnight he got his pyjamas and he rolled them up in a piece of paper, and his dad took him to sleep in the boarding school across the road because he knew the caretaker. They were asleep when he went, and they were asleep when he came back home for his breakfast. So not a lot of people knew he was doing this, until a couple of his sisters left home, and then he could come back. But from the age of at least about 3.5, 4, all Dixie Dean wanted to be was an Everton footballer. And as a young boy, he had a football underneath his arm all the time, ready to play football. And round the corner from where he lived was a low roof garage, and on the garage was a chalk goal wall. Chalk goal. He used to go round the corner, he'd get his ball, and he'd throw it on the roof, and he'd wait for it to roll down, and he'd head it into the goal. And he played like that all on his own till he started school. He started school at Laird Street Primary. By the time he was 10, he was the captain. And on one specific day, he played for the school at 9:15 in the morning, and he scored 6 goals. Played for the boarding school 2:15 in the afternoon, and he scored 6 goals. He played for his dad's football team, the Railway, at 6:30 at night. What did he score?
6.
6 goals. 18 goals in one day. If he wasn't going to become a footballer, I'd have chewed my hat. But he joined Tranmere Rovers, their academy. Everton said, no problem. He will come to Everton Football Club. And just after his 18th birthday, they said, will he sign for Everton Football Club? He was over the moon. Yes, He signed on the 18th of March 1925. He cost us £3,000 and £7 a week. A lot of money in them days. He was happy because it was more than he was getting a tram here. But he was with us from 1925 right through until 1937-38. And a manager came to Everton and didn't like Dixie Dean and sold him to Notts County. He was devastated. He wanted to spend the rest of his life at Everton Football Club, but they sold him to Notts County. He went down there for a season. When that season was over, he heard that Sligo Rovers over in Ireland were looking for a striker. Oh, he thought, I'll try for that one. And he got the job over there. But I love Sligo Rovers for another reason. 60 grand, Seamus Coleman. And he's my favourite player at the moment, so come on, Seamus. When he left Sligo Rovers, they gave him a wad of money. But when he got back to Birkenhead, it was the year 39-40, and the war was breaking out. And he wanted to go and do his little bit for the country, so he joined the army. And he met Dave Hickson in the army, another Everton player. He was away for about 4 years, came back to Goodison and came back home, remembered his little wad of money, and he put it as a deposit off a pub in Chester called Dublin Packet. Had all his England caps, his medals, his memorabilia on show. He used to stand up and go, come on in, come have a drink, come see these medals, come on. He lost the pub. Came back to Goodison Park and he asked the owners if they'd employ him until he retired. They gave him a job in the football pools. He didn't like it because it was too enclosed. So they transferred him to the garages in Liverpool. In the open air, he was fine. When he got to about 69, he thought, I think it's time I retired now. I could be watching a nice few games of football, having a nice couple of days out with the family and just taking it easy. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be either. Because when he was 72, he was taken into hospital with wear and tear on his legs and ankles. They amputated the lower half of his right leg. So he was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. So he didn't get to see these nice games or have a days out with the family. But he still had a smile on his face. In 1980, as a special guest of managers and players at both sides of the park, they invited him to lunch at the Holiday Inn Hotel. Bill Shankly, Harry Catrick, Dave Hickson, Brian Abone, Ian St John, Big Ron, and a few more others took him for lunch, brought him back to Goodison Park for the derby of 1980. Liverpool were winning 2-0. Everton scored, Dixie Dean put his hands up and cheered, fell forward, and he passed away in the seat that he was sitting in. So it was a sad day all round for Evertonians, but what a way for a blue man to go. His friends, his fans, his family were all here, and we adored him here at Goodison Park, and we still do. Talk about him, we've got a statue to him. But now it's your turn. Somebody's turned me off again. You can come up here, have your photograph taken, sing us a song, tell us a story, or just go, cheese. Come on, up you go.
And don't be shy if you'd like to